Hello, and welcome to the Onfinity training session. In this session, we will explore the complete procurement cycle from the requisition to request for quotation to purchase order process. His process ensures structured, competitive, and transparent purchasing within the organization. Let's begin by reviewing our agenda. We will walk through each stage of procurement process from requisition to RFQ to purchase order process, understand its business significance, and examine the system components that support it within the Onfinity. The objective of this session is to enable you to understand the requisition to request for quotation to purchase order process and its associated term in the context of business processes. It also enables you to test requisition to request for quotation to purchase order process in the context of business requirements. Prerequisites. Before we proceed, let's ensure the prerequisites are in place. You will need the access to the Onfinity platform with a valid user ID and password. And Onfinity Basic Setup and Master Setup configuration must be completed and available. Let's start with the requisition to request for quotation to purchase order use case. It will help you to better understand the process. Let's look at a practical use case here. A Sonic Ventures initiated a procurement process to acquire smartphones and laptops for new employees. It begins with a purchase requisition raised by the HR department detailing the required specification and quantities. For example, 50 Dell laptops, 25 Samsung Galaxy S22, and 25 Redmi Note 10. Once the requisition is reviewed and completed by the appropriate authority, the procurement team process it and create a request for quotation against requisition. After evaluating vendor response, a purchase order is issued to the selected supplier. Upon delivery, the goods are inspected and goods receipt note is generated to confirm the receipt. Finally, the finance team process the AP invoice to ensure that the invoice is matched against the PO and GRN, validating quantity and price accuracy. Next, we have requisition to request for quotation to purchase order process flowchart. It is a high-level overview of requisition to RFQ to PO process, moves through RFQ creation and vendor response evaluation, and ends with PO issuance, goods receipt, and invoice processing, ensuring accuracy and accountability at every step. To execute this process effectively, certain foundational master data must be available in the system. So, let's know the basic masters involved. To record a requisition to request for quotation to purchase order process, here are some basic masters which must be available in the system. Vendor, product charge, attribute set instance, UOM, currency, price list, payment term, payment method. All of these topics are already covered in their respective training sessions. If you want to learn how to configure them, you can watch the detailed sessions on each topic. Now let's take a look on procurement-specific masters involved in the process. To record a requisition to request for quotation to purchase. Order process. Here are some procurement-specific masters which must be available in the system. RFQ topic, mail template. Now that we've covered the basic concept and use case of the process, we have a clear understanding of the steps that need to be followed to run this business process. This concludes the foundational conceptual knowledge of how and what we are going to process in the system. So let's move to the Onfinity and see one by one each process and proceed with these all transaction into the Onfinity. Let's move into the Onfinity system. Once open the Onfinity URL in your web browser. Enter your user ID in the designated field. Enter your password securely. Click on the Login button to access the system. Once you log into the Onfinity system, you'll land on the home page where you can see all the available widgets known as mosaics in Onfinity. These mosaics can be useful for your analysis or business insights and can be adjusted according to your needs. As per our use case, we will start the process with the requisition. To open the requisition screen, simply go to the menu utility. You can search for requisition directly in the menu or navigate to the procurement management section. Under Procurement Management, you'll find a module for Requisition. Simply click on Requisition to proceed. By default, you will see the default widgets on the Requisition landing page, which are useful for analysis and filtering records. You can apply filters such as Advanced Search, Warehouse, Document Type, Document Status, Preparer, and Requester to narrow down your available data of requisition. Additionally, there are 3 KPIs available to help analyze open requisitions, whether for purchase orders or material transfers or inventory use. You can also monitor pending requisitions awaiting approval from pending requisitions by approver. The landing page also includes quarterly and monthly requisition trends comparisons with last year, providing insights into purchasing patterns. At the bottom, you'll find product categories with the highest value usage. So far, we've discussed the requisition process and its associated widgets in detail. In the previous sessions, we followed the process from requisition to purchase order. For more detailed information, you can refer to the corresponding video. For now, you just need to navigate to the requisition record screen by clicking on the Screen option. As we already know, a requisition is a formal request to obtain a product or service, typically initiated by a business. Requisitions are commonly used to procure additional supplies, raw materials, or labor hours, helping to maintain better inventory control. To add a new record in Onfinity, simply click on the New Record button of Requisition screen. This will open Screen Single Record View, where you can enter the further details. Select the organization in which you are processing the requisition transaction. After that, choose the appropriate document type that corresponds to the intended transaction. In our case, we are processing a procurement transaction, so we will proceed with Purchase Requisition as the document type. Next, enter the document date, the date on which you are creating this particular record. Then, select the requester who has initiated the request for the items. Let's take Tirth as the requester, who is currently serving as the HR admin. You can set the priority in the priority field, which defines the urgency or importance of procuring the requested items. Let's set the date required as 30th of June 2025. This date required indicates the urgency of the requisition and represents the expected timeline by which the procurement process should be completed. Select the requester warehouse, which represents the location where the products are needed. The source warehouse indicates a central warehouse within the organization that can fulfill the demand of other requesting warehouses, typically used in internal material transfers. However, since we are creating a purchase requisition intended for procurement, both warehouses can be set as the same. Next, select the appropriate price list, which will be used to maintain pricing for the transaction. Adjacent to the price list, you'll find the Preparer field, which is automatically populated based on the login details of the user creating and responsible for this requisition. After completing all the required fields, simply click on Save to save the record. Additionally, you can enter a description to provide specific instructions or context for the requisition transaction. However, for now, we are not adding any description, as this field is informational only and does not have any functional dependency in the process. If you went through the previous session on requisition to purchase order, you might recall that we use the same products, except for one. We can reuse that here, which also helps demonstrate how the Copy from Another Requisition feature works. To copy the line items for this requisition from an existing one, click on the Copy from Another Requisition button. This will open a new information screen where you need to enter the number of the existing requisition. Once the requisition is selected, click OK. The line items will then be inserted into the current requisition. To review or modify any items, navigate to the Lines tab. For our use case, the logistic mouse item is not required. You can delete it by selecting the item and clicking the Delete option. A confirmation dialog will appear. Click OK to confirm the deletion. If needed, you can also update the item prices directly in the Line tab. However, for now, we are not making any changes, as the existing data aligns perfectly with our use case. Now let's move back to the Header tab by clicking on the Home option. In the Header panel of the Requisition screen, click on the Document Action button visible as Complete. This will open an information screen for the document action. To finalize the transaction, click OK with the selected action as Complete to complete the record. In the Header panel of the Requisition screen, several important details are available that provide a clear overview of the record. These include organization, document date, requisition number, currency, subtotal amount, and document status. Additionally, the panel includes the Document Action button to control the document status and a Posting button for posting ledger entries. On the Requisition screen, there are two other buttons we haven't used yet. Calculate Budget, used when budget functionality is enabled. Create Lines from Cart, used to insert line items from a pre-created cart. Both of these features are explained in detail in their respective training sessions. You can refer to those sessions to understand how they work and when to use them. Now that we have completed the requisition record, we can proceed to create a request for quotation, RFQ, based on this requisition, as required by our use case. To open the Request for Quotation screen, navigate to the Request for Quotation module under Procurement Management. Click on Request for Quotation to open the screen. A request for quotation, RFQ, is a process used by an organization to invite potential suppliers or service providers to submit price quotations for the opportunity to supply goods or services. To add a new RFQ record, click on the New Record button. This will open the screen in single record view. First, select the organization for the RFQ transaction. Next, choose the appropriate document type. The Request for Quotation document type is typically set up during tenant configuration and is specific to RFQ transactions. Then, enter the response date. This is the deadline by which vendors must submit their quotations. Any quotes received after this date will not be considered. For this example, we'll set the response date to July 1st, 2025. Now, provide a suitable name for the RFQ. This name should clearly represent the purpose or uniqueness of the RFQ, making it easier to identify later. Let's say this is a IT hardware RFQ to PO process. Next, we need to select the RFQ type. There are three available options. Quote all lines. In this type, vendors are expected to provide pricing for all the items listed in the RFQ. If a vendor does not quote for every item, their response will not be eligible for evaluation. This ensures a fair comparison and allows the system to rank responses effectively to identify a single winner. Quote selected lines. This option allows vendors to quote only for the items they can supply. It's useful when vendors may not be able to provide all products listed. In this case, each item can be evaluated separately and multiple vendors can be selected as winners for different items. Quote, total only. Here, the vendor provides a lump sum amount for the entire RFQ without item-wise pricing. This is typically used when the overall cost is the main factor, rather than individual item prices. For this scenario, we will proceed with the Quote All Lines option. After selecting the RFQ type, the next step is to bind the RFQ topic. The RFQ topic is used to define the set of vendors who are invited to submit quotations for a specific RFQ. In the Onfinity system, this group of potential suppliers is referred to as the RFQ topic. Since we've already created an RFQ topic, we'll go ahead and select it from the available list. To view more details about this record, click the zoom on the right side of the field. This will open the RFQ topic screen. Then, click the topic name hyperlink to open the record in single record view. We have already covered this screen in detail during our previous session, Request for Quotation to Purchase Order. To quickly recap how to create a topic, select the relevant organization, enter a meaningful name for the topic, link it to the related RFQ type, bind the appropriate email template for communication with vendors, and save the topic. Next, let's move to the Vendor tab by clicking the Vendor button. This section is used to add all the potential vendors for the RFQ. To add a vendor, simply click Add New Record and select the vendor details from the list. If you'd like a more in-depth explanation of the RFQ topic setup and configuration, you can refer back to our first session on the RFQ to purchase order process. We have linked 3 vendors to the RFQ topic. Only these vendors will receive the RFQ notification via email, and vendor responses will be created specifically for them. These responses will be used to collect and manage quotations for this RFQ. Let's now return to the main RFQ screen. Next is the Mail Template field. As seen earlier, a mail template is already linked at the RFQ topic level. So, what is the purpose of this additional field? If the mail template is left blank on the RFQ screen, the system will use the template configured in the RFQ topic. However, in some cases, users may want to send a custom message that is specific to a single transaction. In such situations, a mail template can be selected directly on the RFQ screen. When a mail template is defined in both places, the one on the RFQ screen takes priority over the one bound to the topic. For now, we'll proceed without selecting a new mail template here and continue with the one already configured in the topic. The representative field indicates the person responsible for creating the RFQ. Next, select the currency in which the transaction will be carried out. Once this basic information is entered, you can save the RFQ header. The function of the remaining fields on this screen has already been explained in detail in earlier sessions. To continue with creating RFQ lines based on an existing requisition, follow these steps. Click the Action button. Select Create Lines from Requisition. On the Create Lines from Requisition screen, click the Requisition field to open the requisition details. Select the appropriate requisition from the list and click OK. The related product lines will appear on the Create Lines from Requisition screen. And if we want to make any change in entered quantity for any particular product line, we can make changes here. For now, select all required product lines and click OK, and info message will appear RFQ lines saved successfully. You can review the product lines in the composite view or navigate to the Line tab by clicking the corresponding button. To view a specific line in detail, click the hyperlink to open it in single record view. All RFQ lines can be reviewed from here. In addition to the product details, you can also verify the quantity tab within the composite view. The Purchase Quantity check button is automatically marked as true by default, indicating that this product is intended for purchase order creation. To return to the main RFQ header, click the Home option. Then, to complete the RFQ, click on Document Action available in the header panel on the left side of the screen. On the Document Action confirmation page, click OK to process the record. The header panel also provides a summary of key information such as RFQ name, document number, RFQ type, response date, currency, total RFQ amount. These details offer a quick overview of the RFQ before submission or further processing. Once the RFQ is completed and saved, additional actions become available under the Action button. These newly enabled options support the next steps in the RFQ process. To initiate the vendor response process, you need to publish the RFQ. This is done by selecting the Publish RFQ option from the action. Publishing the RFQ allows the system to generate corresponding records in the vendor response screen, where vendor quotations can be entered and managed. Once vendor responses are submitted and completed, the next step is to evaluate them. Use the Rank RFQ option to rank vendor submissions based on price. After the ranking process is completed and a winning vendor is identified, you can proceed to create a purchase order by selecting the Create Purchase Order option. This allows you to convert the selected vendor response directly into a formal purchase order. Clicking on the Publish RFQ, an information page will appear. On this screen, ensure the checkbox Send Invitation to Vendors is marked True. This will trigger email notifications to all vendors linked to the RFQ topic, inviting them to respond with their price quotations. Now, click on OK to confirm and proceed. Once confirmed, you will notice a message at the bottom of the screen indicating the outcome of the action. It displays created 3, which means that 3 vendor response records have been successfully generated on the vendor response screen based on the vendors linked through the RFQ topic. Additionally, you may see Send RFQ Invitation to Vendor 3, indicating that email invitations have been successfully sent to all 3 vendors. If the system encounters any issue while sending an email, error will show the number of failed invitations. This allows users to quickly identify and take action on any delivery issues. Emails can only be sent from the system if mail configuration has been properly set up for your tenant. The mail configuration process has already been covered in detail during a separate session. For more information, please refer to that specific session on mail configuration. Now, let's proceed to the vendor response screen. To access the vendor response screen, you can either search for it directly using the menu utility or navigate through the Request for Quotation module. Under Procurement Management, you will find the Vendor Response option. Click on Vendor Response to open the screen. To view a specific vendor response, select the record and click on the hyperlink to open it in single record view. The name of the vendor response header will match the name of the RFQ. This helps to clearly associate the vendor response with the corresponding RFQ. Next, navigate to the Response tab. Here, you will find response records automatically created for each vendor as part of the RFQ publishing process. Click the hyperlink of a response line to open it in single record view. Within the Response tab, all vendors linked to the RFQ topic are listed. You can review the details for each vendor individually, including the vendor name and related information. At this stage, we need to enter the quoted prices for the items based on the quotations received from each vendor. To begin, navigate to the Response Lines tab by clicking the Response Lines button within the Response tab. Click on the hyperlink to open the response line in single record view. This allows you to enter prices directly in the composite view. Each response line displays the product name linked to the corresponding RFQ line. In the composite view, under Response Quantity, you can enter the quoted price for each item. If the vendor quoted the Samsung S22 at $58,000, enter that value and save the record. Next, for the Redmi Note 10, enter $18,000 and save. Finally, for the Dell laptop, enter $68,500. After entering and saving the prices for all products, return to the Response tab. To mark this vendor's response as complete, click the Complete button. This makes the response read only and indicates that the vendor's record is now ready for evaluation during the ranking process. Repeat the same steps for the next vendor. Go to the Response Lines tab. Open Product Line in single record view. Enter the prices in the Response Quantity field within the composite view. Enter Samsung S22 as $60,000, Redmi Note 10 as $19,000, and Dell laptop as $68,000. Save each price. Return to the Response tab and mark this vendor's response as complete. Now, proceed to the last vendor and follow the same process to update their quoted prices. Navigate to the Response Lines tab and click on the hyperlink to open the record in single record view. Begin entering the prices as quoted by the vendor. Enter $52,000 for Samsung S22 and save the record. Move to the next line and enter $13,500 for the Redmi Note. Save the record. For the next product, enter $80,000. After saving, return to the Response tab. If you wish to view the record in grid view, click on the Grid toggle button. Alternatively, you can use the Back button. In the grid view, you can observe that the minimum price is quoted by DevCast Incorporation. At this point, you can use the Rank RFQ process available on the RFQ screen to automatically evaluate and identify the winner. Alternatively, a winner can be selected manually by enabling the Selected Winner checkbox. This approach is useful when other factors such as delivery time need to be considered alongside pricing. For this scenario, we will proceed with the ranking process directly from the Request for Quotation screen. Navigate back to the RFQ screen and click on the Action button. From the available options, select Rank RFQ. This will evaluate all vendor responses and automatically determine the winner based on the quoted prices. Next, return to the vendor response screen and refresh the records. You will see that the winning vendor has been selected and the ranking information has been updated accordingly based on the submitted quotes. Once the winner is finalized, go back to the RFQ screen to generate the purchase order. Before proceeding, ensure that the selected vendor has valid configurations in place, such as payment terms, payment method, and price list. These are necessary to complete the purchase order creation process smoothly and without any error. Click on Create Purchase Order to initiate the process of generating the purchase order. Upon clicking, the purchase order information screen will appear. Here, you need to select the appropriate document type and then click OK. Once the process is completed, the system will display the document number of the newly created purchase order at the bottom of the screen. To view the purchase order, navigate to the Purchase Order module under Procurement Management. Click on Purchase Order to open the screen and review the details of the order that has been generated. Once the screen opens, you will land on the Purchase Order landing page, where various mosaics related to purchase orders are displayed. Purchase order is a formal document issued by a buyer to a seller, indicating the types, quantities, and agreed prices for products or services. It plays a key role in the procurement process and helps streamline operations across departments. We have already discussed the purpose and use of these mosaics in previous sessions. They are primarily used for filtering records and analyzing purchase order trends. You may refer to earlier sessions for more detailed insights. To view the created purchase order, click on the View Record mosaic. Since the record was generated from the RFQ, it will be listed here. Select the purchase order created from the RFQ and click on the hyperlink to open it in single record view. The purchase order record is generated as a result of vendor selection. It includes all relevant information such as vendor details, item specifications, quantities, pricing, and delivery terms. In this view, you can verify all order-related details. Most fields are auto-populated from the vendor response, and vendor terms are fetched from the vendor master record. Ensure that the required vendor details are already maintained in the system. If necessary, you may update taxation fields where applicable. You can also modify the order dates such as the created date and date promised, which reflects the expected delivery date. You can make changes to the dates on this screen if required. As previously discussed, many of these fields are auto-populated, but let's take a quick look at their purpose and how they are used in the purchase order process. Organization specifies the organization under which the purchase order is being created. Target document type defines the type of transaction that this purchase order represents and how it will be processed within the system. Order reference used to enter the reference number of any related document or transaction, especially if this order is linked to another process. Order date indicates the date on which the purchase order is created. Promise date represents the expected delivery date for receiving goods or services from the vendor. Vendor identifies the vendor from whom the organization is procuring the goods or services. Additional fields such as invoice to business partner, vendor location, invoice to location, vendor contact, and invoice to contact are automatically populated based on the configurations set up in the vendor master. Under the delivery and invoicing section, several important fields are available. Warehouse specifies the location where the goods are expected to be received from the vendor. Price list defines the applicable pricing for the transaction. Payment term indicates the agreed time frame for completing the payment. Currency rate type helps calculate currency conversion if the transaction is in a currency different from the tenant's base currency. Payment method specifies how the payment will be made to the vendor. If needed, the payment method can be modified by selecting a different option. For instance, if the payment will be made using a Visa card, you can select that method from the list. After making the necessary changes, ensure the header is saved. Line item details can be reviewed under the Line tab by clicking on the Line tab button. The payment schedule becomes relevant when the payment term is set to Advance. Once the record is completed, this section will reflect the scheduled payment details. We will explore this further in the use case related to advance payment terms. To view tax information, click on the Order Tax tab. To open the tax details in Single Record View, click on the hyperlink. This section displays the tax details applicable to the overall purchase order. In this case, the default tax applied is VAT 0%, which results in zero tax on the order. The configuration for default tax settings has already been covered in the Tax Management Setup session. To return to the main screen, click on the Home button. Next, we have the Expected Landed Cost Detail tab. This tab is used to define any additional costs incurred for the product, such as shipping, handling, or customs charges. However, since this topic will be covered in a separate session, we will skip it for now. Several additional action options are available for working with purchase orders. Create line from requisition. Used to generate order lines based on an existing requisition. This has already been demonstrated in a previous session. Copy from purchase order. Allows you to add lines from an existing purchase order. Apply discount. Enables applying discounts directly to the line items. Create line from cart. Adds lines from a pre-configured product card. We have now reviewed and verified all the key elements of the purchase order. To finalize the process, click on the Document Action button located in the header panel and select Complete and click OK. This action will complete the purchase order record. Once the purchase order, PO, is completed, it is shared with the vendor. Upon receiving the items, the next step is to proceed with the Goods Receipt Note (GRN) process to update the stock in the warehouse. To begin, we need to navigate to the Goods Receipt Note screen. Go to the Material Management module. Under Storage Operation, select Goods Receipt Note to open the screen. This will land you on the GRN landing page, which contains various mosaics. These mosaics help in filtering records, analyzing costs, tracking returns, and reviewing insights such as the top 10 stocked products via charts. A Goods Receipt Note, GRN, is a record of goods received from suppliers, and the record is shown as a proof that ordered products have been received. The record is used by the buyer for comparing the number of goods ordered to the ones delivered. GRN can be created manually by using the Create Lines from option, as demonstrated in a previous session, or directly from the purchase order using the available mosaics Expected GRN or Pending GRN. Expected GRN displays purchase order records with a promised date of today or in the future. Pending GRN shows purchase order records with a promised date earlier than the current day. For this scenario, we will create the GRN using the Expected GRN mosaic. Find and click on the document number of the recently completed purchase order. The system will display the item lines available for receipt. In this case, we are adding 2 items, so the GRN will be generated for those. One remaining item will be added later using the Create Lines from option. Select the 2 item lines. Once selected, the Generate GRN button becomes enabled. Click on it to proceed. The system will create the GRN record using the details from the purchase order. Once created, the GRN opens in Single Record View, where all relevant details such as organization, document type, movement date, warehouse, and vendor are autofilled based on the purchase order. You can update the movement date to accurately reflect the actual date of receipt. If you need to add additional product lines, click on Create Lines from. This is especially useful if you need to include unreceived lines from the same purchase order. Alternatively, if you are creating a GRN manually, to manually create a GRN, click on New Record. Select the organization under which the GRN is being created. Choose the appropriate document type for transaction identification. Set the movement date to the actual date of receipt. Select the warehouse where the items are to be received. Select the vendor, which will autofill associated fields like vendor location and vendor contact. Just like the purchase order, the representative field defaults to the logged-in user, indicating the person responsible for the follow-up on the transaction. For international transactions, you'll also need to specify the INCO terms, international commercial terms, to define the shipping responsibilities and conditions. To insert the remaining item line into the GRN, click on the Create Lines From button. A new window will appear here. Enter and select the purchase order number from which you want to pull the item line. You may notice that some lines are already marked as selected with an entered quantity of 0. This indicates those lines are already fully consumed. Select the line you wish to insert and click OK. The selected line will now be added to your GRN. You can also use the Create Lines Process button available on this screen to insert lines based on invoices, if those have already been created in the system for the corresponding purchase order. If the selected option, either purchase order or invoice, contains many lines, the product field can help filter and locate the required line items quickly. If you want to add lines using the Create Lines from Cart button, you may use this option. The detailed working of the cart feature is explained in its dedicated session. After all the required product lines have been inserted, review them to ensure accuracy. If you want to review the ledger entries that will be generated, click on the Review Posting button. This can be done while the record is still in draft stage. Once you've verified all the information, click on the Document Action button in the header panel. Choose Complete, click OK, and the GRN document status will be completed. Once your GRN is completed, click on the Not Posted button, click OK for posting. This will update the respective ledger accounts in the system, ensuring that inventory and accounting records are properly adjusted. The next step in the procurement process is to generate the invoice. This can be done in one of the following ways. Directly from the Goods Receipt Note, GRN screen. If the user has the required system access, user can use Generate Invoice button, or by the finance team, through the AP Invoice screen available under the Accounts Payable module. Although we demonstrated invoice creation via the Generate Invoice option on the GRN screen in the previous session, in this case, we will proceed by manually creating the invoice using the AP Invoice screen. To create the invoice manually, navigate to the Financial Management module. Under Accounts Payable, select AP Invoice. This will take you to the AP Invoice screen landing page. Upon opening the AP Invoice screen, you'll notice several mosaics available. These are used for filtering the available records, analyzing invoice data, and managing financial transactions. We won't cover these mosaics in detail here, as they will be addressed in depth during the finance training session. AP Invoice refers to an accounts payable invoice. It is a document that records a company's obligation to pay a vendor or supplier for goods or services received. It serves as a formal record of a payable transaction, ensuring that the company tracks what it owes and when payments are due. To add a new invoice record, you can either click the New Record button directly from the top panel on Record screen, or use the New Record mosaic, which will open the screen in single record view, allowing you to start entering invoice details immediately. DMS Documents is used to upload the AP invoice document received from vendor, and it is only available if the DM is integrated and installed. Begin by selecting the appropriate organization, choose AP Invoice as the document type, and enter the invoice reference number received from the vendor. For example, AP 100,009, specify the invoice date, accounting date, and confirm the representative, which defaults to the logged-in user. Next, select the relevant vendor. Based on this selection, fields such as location, contract, payment terms, payment method, and price list will be automatically populated. Once all required information is entered, click Save Record to save the invoice header. For detailed guidance, refer to the AP Invoice training module under Financial Management. To create a line in the AP invoice from a purchase order or a goods receipt note, GRN, click on the Create Line From button. You can either enter the purchase order number directly into the field, or use the order selection page to choose the purchase order manually, or generate the line from an available provisional invoice if applicable, or from a GRN. For this scenario, we will proceed with the purchase order number. Navigate to the order selection page, select the relevant purchase order, and click OK. Alternatively, simply enter the PO number in the designated field. Select all the lines you wish to insert and confirm by clicking OK. The selected lines will be added to the AP invoice. If there is any variation in pricing, you can update the price directly from the composite view. You may also access further details by navigating to the Line tab and clicking the hyperlink to open the line in single record view. Once verified, return to the header by clicking the Home button. Complete the AP invoice by using the Document Action button located on the header panel. Upon completion, the transaction entries will be reflected in both the Match PO and Match Invoice screens. To verify the matching purchase order, go to the Line tab. Now click on the Action panel on the right, click Show Matched PO. You will see the linked matched PO for that specific line. Click the hyperlink to view the full record in single record view. Similarly, you can verify the matched invoice and the related shipment reference under the Invoice Reference field. To do this, click the Back button to return to the Line tab. On the right-hand Action panel, click on the Show Matched Invoice option. This will display the matched invoice records related to the selected product line. Click on the hyperlink of the desired record to view it in single record view. This matched invoice reflects the linkage between the accounts payable invoice and the corresponding goods receipt note, GRN, ensuring the invoice is reconciled correctly with the received goods. Return to the header view by using the Home button. Before finalizing, close the Action panel and proceed to post the AP invoice by clicking the Not Posted button in the header panel. Confirm the action by clicking OK. Posting ensures that all financial transactions are correctly recorded and reflected in the system's accounting records. This completes the end-to-end procurement cycle in Onfinity, starting from requisition, progressing through request for quotation, RFQ, and purchase order, PO, and concluding with goods receipt and invoice posting. Thank you for your time and attention. With a comprehensive understanding of the requisition to RFQ to purchase order, PO process, you are now well prepared to apply these insights effectively within the procurement workflow using the Onfinity system.